Hey, River Glen Church, so glad you're here. If today's your first time, welcome. Thank you for making us part of your weekend. I'm away on a short preaching break. It's been a great time for me to refresh and prepare for what's ahead. I'm super thankful that Steve Larson is joining us this weekend. Steve's been a friend of mine and a friend of River Glen since it started. Steve and I met when we were both planting new churches. He's got a heart for the church, God's word, and people. This weekend we're diving into a new series called Life Hacks, all about the rich wisdom found in the book of Proverbs. I'm excited to see what Steve is prepared to share as we grow in wisdom together. Would you join me in welcoming Steve Larson to River Glen Church?
Well, thank you. Appreciate the warm welcome this weekend, and I'm grateful that I get to be here with you. Welcome you at Pewaukee, if you're online and here in the room. I don't know how you got here today. Maybe you had to swim, but I read that there was maybe as much as 10 inches of rain in parts of Milwaukee over the last 12 to 18 hours, so it's been kind of a crazy day and a half, hasn't it? And some people have water in their basements, and it's just been a challenge. So I'm glad that you're here and we get to worship the Lord today together. My kids would say, it's been a minute since I've been here, and it's been since BC, not before Christ, but before COVID, right? That's one of our markers in today's society. We go by BC anymore, but I've been a pastor on our church staff. We have a multiple church sites, kind of like you do. We have 7 locations in Michigan, and I've been the pastor to the team over the last few years, kind of like the dad to the team, so to speak. But and where I live, for most of this baseball season, my team the Tigers have had the best record in all of baseball until recently, and now your team has the best record in all of baseball. Hats off to you all, and now maybe we'll meet each other in the World Series. Who knows? But I'm grateful that I get to kick off this brand new series called Life Hacks. And we're going to begin by telling a story about a guy by the name of William Borden. In the early 1900s, he was heir to the Borden Dairy Estate. He graduated from Chicago High School, and he was already a millionaire. For his graduation, his parents gave him just a little gift, a trip around the world. And traveling around and experiencing Asia and Europe and Africa, Middle East, it gave William Borden a burden for the world's hurting people. So he wrote home and he said, I'm going to give my life to prepare for the mission field. When he made this decision, he wrote in the back of his Bible these 2 words, no reserves. No reserves. Well, Borden then began his college life at Yale, and during his first semester, he started a movement that transformed the campus. A friend of his wrote, in the middle of the first term, Bill and I began to pray together in the morning before breakfast, and we'd been meeting just a short time, and soon a 3rd student joined us, and soon after that, a 4th student joined us. And Borden's group was the beginning of daily groups of prayer that spread to every one of the college classes at Yale in the early 1900s. By the end of the first year, 150 freshmen became interested in meeting for weekly Bible studies. By the time he was a senior, 1,000 out of 1,300 Yale students were meeting in groups like these. Well, William Borden made it a habit to work with the more difficult students and help bring them to Christ. But he didn't just confine his work to Yale. He rescued drunks on the streets of New Haven, Connecticut, and founded the Yale Hope Mission to help rehabilitate them. It was Borden's desire to become a missionary to Muslims in China. So he inspired some other classmates to do the same kind of thing. One classmate said, he certainly was one of the strongest characters I've ever known. He put backbone into the rest of us at college. There was a real iron to him, and I always thought he was had the kind of stuff that martyrs were made of. And although he was a millionaire, Borden seemed to realize that he must be about his father's business and didn't waste time simply pursuing amusement. Turning down high-paying job offers after graduating from Yale, Borden entered 2 more words into his Bible, no retreats. No retreats. Completing studies at Princeton Seminary in New Jersey, William Borden sailed for China to work with the Muslims and stopped first in Egypt to study Arabic. But while in Egypt, he was stricken with spinal meningitis and died within a month at the age of only 25. And when the death of William Borden was communicated from Egypt, it seemed as though a wave of sorrow went around the world. Yet he gave of his wealth and of himself in such a joyful, natural way that it seemed more like a privilege to him than a sacrifice. Some would say that his early death was a waste. Yet he followed God's plan. In his Bible, underneath the words "no reserves" and "no retreats" were written two more words: no regrets. No regrets. And despite losing his life at a point that's less than half the length of mine, William Borden fulfilled those desires. Filled with a passion for Christ, he left a legacy that still lives on. No reserves, no retreats, no regrets. And while there are a lot of things in this life that I don't know, here is one thing that I can say that I do know. You want to live your life with no regrets too. We all do. And today we're going to explore some words from God in his book, the Bible, and see how we can do that. If you want to live your life now and beyond without regret, winning the day, it's going to take some real wisdom, isn't it? So today we want to talk about that very thing, wisdom. How can we become wise guys? In other words, for our life hack today, what does it take in order to have a wise heart? If you want that to be the case, then wisdom needs to become your friend. If you're like me, sometimes you think to yourself, well, I just need to try harder, or I need to be more disciplined, or I need better time management tools at my disposal. The truth is, what we really need is for the Lord to come alongside us and provide for the needs we have. And he wants to do just that. When it comes to having a wise heart, it's not really about more of us, it's really about more of him. So let's see what we can learn about wisdom God's way today. I'm sure you've probably noticed there aren't nearly as many physical bookstores as there used to be, right? On date nights, my wife Shelley and we often went to a big box bookstore as part of our evening date. Maybe you've done the same kind of thing. And we enjoyed walking around and exploring the different sections. We've even done that at the Barnes & Noble over on Moreland Road in Brookfield a time or two. I remember standing in the investment section, and I couldn't believe the numbers of complete idiot guidebooks out there. I mean, I'm sure you've seen those before. In the investing section alone, there was a complete idiot's guide to 401k plans. The Complete Idiot's Guide to Buying Insurance in America, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Managing Your Money, or Making Money on Wall Street, or Personal Finance in your 20s or 30s, Online Investing, and The Complete Idiot's Guide to Being a Cheapskate. No less than 10 Complete Idiot guidebooks in the investing section alone. And those Complete Idiot guidebooks, they didn't just stop with investing. It went into the pet world and self-help books and sports and parenting. Years ago, I had an interest in learning more about the Civil War, and you can guess what I did, right? I picked up this copy right here, The Complete Idiot's Guide to the Civil War. You name it, it's probably been out there. And those books, they sold by the millions. One satisfied customer expressed his appreciation for those books, and he said, I buy them because whatever the subject matter, they spell it out in simple terms. He added, even a regular guy like me can get it. I bring this up because there is a book in the Bible, and it's called Proverbs, that I think could probably fit into the Idiot's Guide series. It takes the ageless, priceless wisdom of God, and it makes it understandable and accessible to regular people like you and like me. No seminary degree is necessary. There are very few confusing theological terms. In the book of Proverbs, we find truth for everyday life that can definitely be understood. And it can help you live your life in a way where you can minimize your regrets. Proverbs is a practical book. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1 says, the Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. I mean, God is pro-honesty, isn't he? Proverbs 20, verse 4 says, sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing. You don't work, you don't eat. Any questions? Proverbs 31 verse 10 says, a wife of noble character, who can find? She's worth far more than rubies. And having been married for more than 4 decades now, I agree wholeheartedly with Proverbs 31. It's a book with 31 different chapters. If you get serious about all this, and you wanted to, you could read a chapter a day and get your daily dose of wisdom, maybe coordinate it with the date. For example, today's the 10th. And you could read Proverbs chapter 10 today. And you might find it, one of those 32 verses found in Proverbs 10, maybe verse 9 says, the man of integrity walks securely, but he who takes crooked paths will be found out. Maybe a verse like that resonates with you. I mean, that verse just reminds me how important it is for me to live life in a way where my speech and my actions are in alignment. That my walk matches my talk. How about you? The man of integrity walks securely, but he who takes crooked paths will be found out. Proverbs 10 may just be a reminder about getting your words and your actions in the right place. And when you take a chapter at a time, or even drill down into one specific verse, that can happen. There is a key theme, though, and it's interspersed throughout the entire book of Proverbs, and it's this: pursue wisdom. Pursue wisdom. And if you want to live with the right kind of heart, a wise heart, then pursue wisdom. This book was written by Solomon. He was the son of David, Israel's king. And 1 Kings chapter 3 tells about a time when God allowed Solomon to have anything he wanted, one wish. You know what he wished for? It wasn't fame or money or power, but wisdom. God said, since you asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, since you didn't ask for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I'll do what you have asked. And 1 Kings 4 says that God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight. It was as measureless as the sand on the seashore. I mean, wouldn't it be awesome if we all had wisdom like that? In the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verses 7 and 8, Solomon wrote these words. He said, get wisdom, though it costs you all you have. Get understanding. Cherish her, and she'll exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. Solomon is saying, when it comes to the bottom line of life, become a wise guy. Let wisdom fill your heart, because wisdom matters. I heard a story told one day about an unemployed guy who was looking for a job, and one day he decided to apply for a job as a janitor at the First Baptist Church, a little town in Kentucky. And the pastor of that church was thinking about hiring him, and he said, would you mind filling out this employment application? And the man said, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I can't read and I can't write. Well, right or wrong, the church decided to take a pass on that guy, and they eventually gave him a bag of apples and let him go on his way. Well, the guy ate a couple of the apples, and then he stood on a street corner, and he sold the rest of the apples. Well, with the profit that he made that day, he bought some more apples, and the next day, on that same street corner, he stood there and sold them all. And he did that every day, and pretty soon, he had a profitable business. It eventually grew into a fruit stand and then a grocery store. A few years later, he walked into a local bank in that same Kentucky town with a bag containing tens of thousands of dollars in it, and he wanted to open up an investment account. Well, the banker, he was jazzed, and he said, would you mind filling out these forms first? The guy said, well, I'm sorry, I can't read and I can't write. Well, the banker was shocked. He said, you can't read or write, yet you made close to $1 million in your business. You know where you'd be if you were educated? The man said, yeah, I'd be a janitor over at First Baptist Church. Now, I don't know if that story really happened or not. Wayne Smith was a longtime pastor and leader who one time said, some stories are just too good to check out. The truth is, wisdom is more than education. Wisdom is seeing and responding to life from God's perspective. It's the dominant theme of the entire book of Proverbs, and its payoff is huge. So with our time that remains today, I'd like to tackle a couple of key elements which might just help you become a wise guy. And I'd love for this life hack to help you become someone who's known for being wise-hearted. It might even help you live your life without regrets. And the first is, wisdom's payoff is huge. Wisdom's payoff, it's huge. If you arrange your life around becoming a wise person, the payoff will exceed anything you can even imagine. Listen to Proverbs 3, verses 13 through 17. Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She's more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. Wisdom's profit is better than gold. Attaining wisdom is better than attaining a fortune. I often joke about the vast fortune that Jeff Bezos has accumulated as the founder of Amazon. Last I heard, he's worth about $238 billion with a B. And the other day, I was just trying to comprehend the interest that's amassed on a daily basis, and it was just jaw-dropping to me. However, if I were given a chance to trade lives and circumstances with him, I would decline without even blinking. Wisdom is better than having someone give you a bunch of jewels. Proverbs says wisdom tends to produce long life, honor, wealth, esteem, and peace too. Is wisdom really that good? Well, let's think about it this way. You know a bunch of people, and I know a bunch of people. Do you know any wise ones? There are probably a few people out there. You know any wise dads? You know any dads who conduct their own lives wisely and raise their kids wisely? You know any dads that know when to encourage and come along softly, but also when to correct a little more forcefully? You know any dads who know just when to counsel or when to listen, when to teach, and when to let life take over as the teacher? You know any wise dads? How much is that worth? Maybe you're thinking, well, my dad was sure not that way. I wish that happened for me. Years ago, as part of a men's retreat right here at River Glen, and during that retreat, we gathered around round tables for some follow-up conversations, and I was surprised at the number of guys who didn't have a very good relationship with their dad. Maybe that's your story too. Maybe you feel like you've gotten ripped off because your connection with your dad is intermittent at best, or doesn't even exist anymore. And if that's your story, I'm really sorry that's the way it's been for you. Can I put a challenge out there for you? Would you consider this idea of pursuing wisdom so that one of the benefits is that your family will eventually win? Can you imagine the kind of benefit that your family will receive throughout the generations if wisdom becomes part of your story? I mean, what if your heart becomes a really wise one? I mean, I'm telling you, you could change your family tree. What if you become the kind of dad or mom you never had? Or whether you're a dad or a mom or an aunt or an uncle or a brother or a sister, when you bring wisdom to the table, your family can win. Everybody will be better off because you chose to pursue wisdom. Hearts will be impacted for the better and for eternity. Throughout the book of Proverbs, Solomon, the author, says whether it's about parenting and raising kids or marriage or the workplace, personal finances, schedules, or tempers, wisdom pays. It pays great dividends. Proverbs says, set your heart on it. Attain wisdom. Go after it. Become wise. It's better than gold. Well, if wisdom's payoff is huge, what do we do? If we want our hearts to be the healthiest they can be, enroll in the School of Wisdom. Everybody's welcome to become part of the alma mater of WU, Wisdom University. And maybe you're here today and you're discovering that it's no accident that you showed up to church today. If you want wisdom to win in your life, you are in a good place. Maybe you're saying to yourself, if the truth were known, I've hurt myself and I've hurt others enough. I've damaged relationships. I've squandered time and energy and money, and I've become very far from God. And it's time for me to say, even today, enough regret, enough. I've had my fill. In fact, My heart's just not where it needs to be. Well, friends, if that's where you are, if that's where people that you know are, I want you to know you are in the absolute best place to enroll in the school of wisdom and start getting wise. As long as you're breathing, you can still pursue wisdom. It's not too late. That's good news. There are no prerequisites to get accepted into WU other than a desire to want to get wisdom, a desire for your heart to change. And maybe you're wondering to yourself, well, how do I do that? Well, here you go. Here's how you do that. The very first chapter in the book of Proverbs, in chapter 1, verse 7, talks about where wisdom begins. How do you become a wise guy? How do you get your heart right? You need to get right with God. In Proverbs 1, verse 7 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You want to get smart? Become wise? Receive some results that are better than gold, better than 238 billion? It starts by admitting that there really is a God, and he loves who? You. He loves even you. And that goes for me too. He's powerful and personal. He's extended to us through Jesus Christ, his son, the hand of forgiveness. And even though you and I have messed up royally in the past, he says, take that hand of forgiveness and I'll help you get on the right path. And that's where wisdom begins. It starts with the Savior, and that might just be the wisest decision that you've ever made or that you'll ever make. You can make the wise choice by getting back on God's pathway for your life. And when you do, he'll change your heart along the way. If you're ever going to make the one right decision in your life, that's the one to make. Proverbs chapter 3 gives some insight that I try to live my life by. And I'm not always successful, but it's my goal. Proverbs 3 verses 5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with what? With all your heart. And then it adds, lean not on your own understanding. Wisdom leans on the Lord far more than it leans on itself. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Then verse 6 says, in all your ways submit to him, and he'll make your paths straight. And some versions say, in all your ways acknowledge him. In other words, when God leads your life, you can get through its maze. To really become a wise guy, to become wise-hearted, when one pursues wisdom, you put your hand in the hand of Christ. And the fear of the Lord, the respect and reverence, the honor of him is the beginning of wisdom. It's foundational. And God desperately wants to help you, but you have to make a move. So let me ask you, how are you doing with that these days? I mean, who's in the driver's seat of your life during this second half of 2025? Are you clutching the controls? Well, now might be a great time to make a change. When I enroll in the school of wisdom, I need to get a couple of key decisions right. And the first one is to let Christ lead the way. As Carrie Underwood sang back in the day, let Jesus take the wheel. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that you cannot do this on your own. You need other people. You need some wise people in your life to walk along the path with you. And if you don't spend time with wise people, then the influence of others will seep into your life in ways you don't want to have happening. It's been said that very few of us can run with a bad set of dogs and not get fleas. Apostle Paul, he wrote to the church in Corinth in the New Testament of the Bible in 1 Corinthians 15:33. Paul said, bad company corrupts good morals. Hundreds of years prior to that, Solomon wrote in Proverbs 13, verse 20, walk with the wise and become wise. Walk with the wise, and what happens? You become wise too. But the second thing, after letting Christ take the wheel, is walking with the wise. And friends, it doesn't just happen. It takes a strategic decision to do that. And when you hang around with other people who are on the path of wisdom, that will help you immensely. A while back, a friend named John and I, we got together and said, hey, let's start meeting together one-on-one every other Saturday at our local Chick-fil-A. And that way we can sharpen each other and encourage each other and pray for each other and challenge each other and just kind of root for each other. And it's been very helpful. It's been helpful for my heart as I look back over time. And I think John would say the same kind of thing. One-on-one, meeting one-on-one has been great. But walking with the wise can also take place when you're part of a small group around here at River Glen. I mean, I've experienced it personally in my home church back in Michigan. Some of the wisest people that I've ever come into contact with have happened through my personal small group experiences. And as school starts getting rolling again, before you know it, brand new small group opportunities will become available for you too. I have found that when my faith gets tested, people in my small group are there to help me pass that test. A couple years ago, it seemed like I wasn't really recovering from COVID all too quickly. And fatigue just kind of lingered. And after doing some additional tests, my doctor discovered that I had some fairly significant blockages in my heart, in my arteries. And I ended up receiving several stents to improve my situation. And people in my small group rallied, and they supported Shelley, my wife, and they supported me along the way as well. At that very same time, our little grandson, Caden, who was only 3 months at the time, was 3 months old then, was in ICU in the hospital. And we didn't know what was wrong with him, and it was super scary. And his mom and his dad had COVID at that same time, and it was a tough time. Our small group then, they stepped up and they prayed and they rallied and they prayed for Caden and for his mom and his dad, and they supported him with some physical things as well. And we're so grateful that things worked out in that situation. And today, Caden, he's this healthy, energetic toddler. He'll wear me out when I'm with him, you know. But today, you know, our small group, we regularly pray for each other and for others. We check in with one another and we root for one another. Friends, can you imagine what it might be like if everyone around here were known by others? I mean, when you experience some of the ups and downs of life and others share that with you too, when you need encouragement and they're there for you, and then you do the same thing for them. Together we sharpen each other and we just help one another become like Christ. When Jesus needs to take the wheel in another area of life, we let that be known from time to time as well. And if everyone in this church had a story like that they could tell, and can you imagine how much more of an impact we could make as a ministry? I mean, it would be so winsome. It could be awesome. And your heart gets healthier and wiser too. A few months ago, my wife Shelley and I, we downsized our home. And friends that have been part of our small group with us over the years, they helped us move into an apartment and then helped us move from the apartment into our new place about 4 months later. 2 moves within 4 months. And when people do that and they show up to help you move like that, you know they're really good friends, right? Well, one of the guys that helped us move this past December, his name is Will. And when Will was in high school, he was part of our small group. And our group at that time was mostly a few empty nesters, a handful of single women, and Will, the high school senior. And we loved having Will in our group. He would even lead the discussion from time to time. Well, later, Will went on to Bible college, and now he's a pastor in Chicagoland. A few months ago, he was in town visiting his family, and he helped us move into our new place just before Christmas. I jokingly said to him, hey Will, our small group meets Wednesdays at 6:30. You want to lead the discussion next time we get together? Well, he wasn't going to be in town any longer, but he said, you know, being part of your small group actually changed the way I view groups. It was so beneficial for me being part of a multi-generational group. He said, I think that's how all groups ought to be. Shelley and I, we have been part of many different small groups over the years. And we have story after story of connections being made with people. Person after person taking their next step with the Lord. And we've seen lives and hearts change for the better. People decided to enroll in the school of wisdom and then stayed on that journey. And we've been able to help them, and they've been able to help us too. And by journeying together, it's been a win all the way around. Wisdom wins the day. I believe that the times that you're most likely to grow in wisdom in your relationship with the Lord, and the times when you make the best decisions are when you're engaged in community. Just like Scripture says, you become wise by walking with the wise. You want to live your life without regret and become a wise guy, have a wise heart? Follow Christ. You want to continue to increase in wisdom? Journey down that lane with others. You'll be glad you did. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He'll make your paths straight.